overcomes the pressure to fit in. Stereotypes, bias, and racism are major issues in this novel, and they can cause feelings of loneliness, jealousy, and anger. Many people, regardless of their ethnic background, generally experience similar feelings, and many of you are probably able to relate to these themes. What, if anything, did you learn from this unit? You may reference examples from the novel, the articles we read, and or the movies and TV shows we watched. Yeah.
So I said what I learned was that even like people say racist thing, some people tries to fit in. They don't really say what they truly believe in. Like how what we watched, like my kid never would do that. How those kids were knew that it wasn't the right thing to talk about, like how being racist, but they didn't really say anything, but they were laughing about it. And in the book, in page 37 and 38, we see that how Jin is trying to fit in, acting like he was okay with those things.
I learned how huge of a problem racism still is today, and not just towards the African American community or the Muslim community, but towards Asian American communities too. I talked a little bit about this yesterday, but on page 96, when Jin Wang gets called a chink and a gook and the really derogatory terms, and I realized I've heard those before from students at Wayzata or kids my age, and so that just made me realize how big of a problem racism still is in our society, even though our society is viewed as really progressive and so much ahead of 20 years ago, but we still have a lot of problems that we need to face.
I learned that in the show My Kid Would Never Do That. I learned that racism is a problem still, and a lot of it can be because of peer pressure. For the example, when Nick was performing, they based it off, he's probably on drugs, he's Hispanic, although he's a good singer, he's not the American guy we're looking for, and it's all because of peer pressure.
Yeah, going off what Amy said, I definitely felt after this unit, I felt what stereotypes can do to people, how they behave if they're stereotyping other people, and how it can affect you if you are being overpowered by them, if their comments are so radical or so extreme or just louder than yours, and how you can be peer pressured into believing those yourself. And I think that's also kind of what Jin believed, is that he heard so many of these stereotypes that he convinced them that they were true, and then that's why he kind of discriminated against Wei Chen. But also in the documentary Class Divided, we also saw how the little kids were convinced that different eye colors were bad, and just how quickly they immediately discriminated against them because they felt superior to them.
My favorite part about this book and this unit in the whole is that, in particular, this book has two different levels of messages. The first level being how prevalent racism is and how that makes people act and how that makes people behave. The second level being the deeper message of changing yourself. Changing yourself is not going to make you happy. However, improving yourself is. And there's a difference between the two, of course.
Yeah, I touched on a couple of things that have been going around. But I just put it as the large and smaller stereotypical comments that we laugh at most of the time to society. I think it's just a natural thing to laugh at. It's not we're not doing it to be mean. It's just probably a couple reasons. Just we're uncomfortable, and the only thing to do is laugh. Are wrong, and we probably should change how we are thinking and perceiving information. And also, I thought it was just interesting to see with the documentary, The Kid Would Never Do That. In the beginning, I thought that the adults wouldn't do the same thing that the kids do. I was my mindset was set on that, and when we watched it, I was kind of blown away that these grown adults would actually think in that mind frame, which I just thought was kind of outrageous. But
yeah, adding on to that, that's what I thought I learned the most is how easy it was for Jane Elliott to kind of manipulate the dolphin, such a silly thing of eye color, so it's not just the color of someone's skin, but then how affected they were. That was really interesting to watch. And also just like people of authority showing like racism, like in this book on page 31 when Jin's teacher says Jin and his family probably stopped doing that sort of thing as soon as they came to the US, so like she's assuming that they were like he was from China, so just like little things like that, I guess.
Go ahead.
I felt like I learned a lot from this unit, and I think I learned some like important life lessons. Like it's like important to just be yourself and be proud of who you are. And then like what most people are saying, like I learned a lot about how stereotyping can affect some people, and like how like it's like if you hear someone say something racist, like don't give into it. Like if your friends are saying stuff that's not nice to a group of people, like maybe say, that's not right, or like, because I think a lot of people are like guilty of stereotyping, and like after reading this, like I might think before saying something, or like if my friends are saying something bad, I will like encourage them to think about what they're saying.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think something else that I learned is kind of that like how like we all kind of stereotype people, even if it's like unconsciously, or like that stereotypes are really prevalent even if like you don't think twice about it, and it's just like something that you like automatically do. Like, and my kids would never do that. Like when like the kids were in the experiment, they like weren't thinking like oh, this is like a stereotype, or like they're not thinking like I'm trying to be racist. It's like something that's unconscious that like just like in the back of their mind is like causing them to make certain decisions. And like in American Born Chinese on page 184, like is when Greg like was telling Amelia not to hang out with Jin, and like he like kind of tells her like different reasons. He like says he's like a nerd or has like geeky hair or something, but Amelia still like listens to him, and like she thinks it's like for those reasons that she shouldn't hang out with him, but like really like they're thinking like she shouldn't be seen with him because he's Chinese.
For me, one thing I really noticed was how a class divided fed into my kid would never do that, and I kind of fed back into the adult portion of a class divided, because like little kids, they're extremely impressionable, and as a kid, like as like a kindergartner, first, second, third grader, everybody's your friend. You don't have an enemy. That's all a construct that you learn later in life. And like at the beginning, when Jane Elliott was doing her experiment with her third graders, it was really kind of scary to see how quickly they were impressioned by just one person. I mean, if you want to like generalize that to society, imagine how quickly a third grader is going to crumble under the pressure of society telling you that's racist, or like do this even though it's racist. And then it was kind of interesting then, because they were all friends, and then these, I guess you could call Jane Elliott's real societal constructs, push them to be kind of racist essentially towards their friends. And then when those constructs were removed, everybody was friendly again. And nobody had any enemies and who you fought with before, you were best friends again. And then when you went into My Kid Would Never Do That, these kids were like old enough that they understood the concept of racism. They'd been told not to do it. They'd seen some situations where it had been applied, and they not necessarily had reacted to it, but they'd like been told like don't do that. But they still were able to get it wrong, even though they knew it was wrong. And then with the adults, it was the same thing. You like the idea I think behind showing us those two is like you have to like kind of snap on it, and snap on it fast when you see somebody being racist. You can't hesitate at all, otherwise it's gonna hurt those around you as well.
I thought it was interesting from the to add on to the Jane Elliott eye color, like not experiment but test maybe. How the kids the first day that were like discriminated against knew how it felt, but then the second day they still continue to treat those kids the opposite color eye color, opposite, okay, yeah, like kids poorly. I just thought like I learned from that, and I guess this whole unit is to really treat people how you want to be treated, and acknowledge racism and stand up for it, and the people who are like victimized by it.
One thing I learned from this unit is like don't judge someone like how they appear or like what their background is, or like in my kid will never do that when he was I don't know his name, but the Mexican kid and the girl that was wearing hijab, like they were both saying, oh, he might be undressed, and they said, oh, she might be like her father should be like ISIS, or like she's a terrorist, and the other three kids were like her background has nothing to do with her singing here, and like that just like told me don't judge someone from where they're from or like how they appear to you, or like if they're like singing, judge them from their voice or like how good they are.
One thing that I learned from just after reading this book and watching the Dateline NBC thing was that there's just a lot of problems in the society. Yeah.
I think something I realized is in life, in a day-to-day basis, like there's a lot of racism, and I think a lot of us don't even notice it, and we kind of just go along with it and judge people, and it's all racism. It's never you suck, you're not funny. It's always something racist that someone has to say.
I think the one, or you can go.
I was just gonna say that I think the main problem with why this isn't going away is because children are so like impressionable. Even if an adult makes a racist joke and everybody around them knows it's a joke, but the kid hears it, the kid isn't gonna know that they're joking, or even if they do, they're gonna grow up around that kind of culture, and then they're gonna use that when they're older, and it's only gonna get like it's gonna continue on until like everybody.
So you're saying we need to break the cycle?
Yes.
I think going off of that, I think it's also our job to do that, because we, as high schoolers, we are direct influence with younger generations of kids, and we have to step in and tell them like, hey, like this is wrong, and we gotta embrace them. Like, while your parents or your grandparents or your friends may say this, you gotta know it's wrong, and we gotta make sure we tell them that.
Yeah, I just want to touch on that too. That point, I really don't think, like, it's also a lot of us influence our younger generation, but also this country is kind of built on that premise of like kind of like racism. Like, you gotta be kind of racist to take what you want. Like, let's be real. Like, we took all the land from the Native Americans, and that was like 100% racism. So I don't think it's gonna be going away anytime soon or ever, just because this country was built on that premise of if you want to take something, you're gonna take it no matter what, and that was the founding fathers like mindset, which kind of be grateful for them because we're in the greatest country in the world, and that's just like what happened, and it's not gonna change because younger generations are gonna learn about that, and they're just gonna say, well, that is what it is, even though society's gonna say, well, that's wrong. They're still gonna have that in their back of their mind. If you're an American-born citizen, you learn it throughout your school career.
I'd like to get one more thing.
Once you're done, we need to move.
Yeah. So what I learned from the book was on page 137 when Wong Lai Tsao responded to the vagrants asking him why he gets up in the morning and goes and takes care of them all the time. His response to that question really just opened my eyes and made me realize that, like, wow, he's actually right, and more people should just be like him and take care of each other.
Has anyone not talked that wants to say something?
Cameron does.
Morgan, don't do that. It's so mean.
No?
Just
Okay.
Wrap it up, some fire.
Yes, you do. Come on. Look at all that writing.
Oh my god.
No? Okay. That's okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay.